Einen wunderschönen guten Tag, ihr Lieben. Wir kommen heute wieder zusammen und ich freue mich sehr, innerhalb der Maria Magdalena Vereinigung Eartha Love willkommen zu heißen. Und Eartha Love ähm, ist lebend schon auch in Großbritannien und Glastonbury und gleichzeitig auch in Portugal. Und wie das zusammenhängt, wird sie uns gleich selber erzählen. And I would love to say hello. We are so blessed to have you here, dear Eartha, to see you here and sharing your wisdom with us. Dies ist das erste Mal, dass wir, es ist ein englisches Gespräch, keine Übersetzung haben werden, sondern mit Untertiteln arbeiten. Ich denke, die meisten von euch sprechen Englisch und wenn noch ein Wort fehlen sollte, dass euch die Untertitel helfen werden, um ein bisschen in der Zeit zu bleiben. So we have got maybe a little bit shorter interview than the last ones and without translation. And you are, as you will show also, maybe some are surprised to see, they think maybe you again, but they don't see you again. You are the twin sister of Hannah, and it was worth it to listen to you because of your special experiences and how this is connected with Maria Magdalena, Mary Magdalene. Hello, Eartha.
Hello. Oh, so good to be here, love. Thank you for welcoming me on, and for everyone who's listening. Yeah, I feel really grateful to be able to speak. It's been a really strong path for me with Mary Magdalena and with Yeshua. And I was initiated into this full embodied awareness of her and Yeshua 5 years ago, yesterday. So I want to share with you, so I just want to share with you, my name is Eartha Love, and my birth name is Love Universal of the Beloved, which was given to me by my father. That's the translation of Angharad Emma Davis in Welsh, which translates as Love Universal of the Beloved, because he was preparing us for this time on earth right now. And if you watched the interview with my identical twin sister, she's Graceful Dawn of the Beloved, and he gave us our names. So I feel my experience with embodying the Magdalena 5 years ago yesterday was me fully stepping into my birth name. And really understanding the prophecy of my family line around what I am being prepared to hold, which is a temple here in Portugal. I'm in Portugal right now. We're building a temple. We're building 2 temples, actually. One will be the Magdalena temple, and one will be the Sun Heart temple. And they'll be together on the mountain in the Serra da Estrela, which is the mountain of stars, Star Mountain in Portugal, portal to the Grail. And so, yeah, my initiation 5 years ago yesterday is through my beloved passing over here in Portugal. And before that, I just want to say I was working with my sister for 25 years in shamanic teachings and practices, learning together since we were 27 with our indigenous teachers, and practicing together, and then teaching in our own school of Sun Heart shamanism. So yeah, that was our path. And then when I had this experience of my beloved passing over, I had what they call a near-death experience. But when you don't actually die, you go with somebody who passes over. It's called a shared death experience, but it's the same as a near-death experience where you go through. So I went with him through his death process to the afterlife. And it was that miraculous embodiment that of him and his journey to the beloved that catapulted me into the experience of Magdalena. And it was through having some support from the sisters through my own heartbreak that and my sister Hannah, that I was able to really start to understand what death and resurrection actually is, and the path of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene as that experience of tending to dying for the resurrection of ourselves to the light, and the gospel of Mary Magdalene as the woman, the feminine, the divine feminine, that was able to feel the resurrection and be of service with her love for the rest of her life on earth. And that's basically what's happened to me, is that through tending to my beloved sacrifice, he sacrificed himself for the life of his son that he was saving in the ocean. I tended to him when he was in a coma. Heart, and I knew that if he was going to wake up out of his coma, that I would need to bring him home into his awareness, his consciousness that I knew would be traveling in the afterlife. I needed it to come fully back into his body. So I was working with his heart in the intensive care ward in Portugal, and in that time, over those 3 days and 3 nights when he was in the coma, I was becoming aware of his evolution to the afterlife and my own evolution with him. And it wasn't until afterwards that I understood what was going on, was that I was tending to him through such love with our hearts, that then I was able to feel his resurrection when he finally flew his body on the last day after the 3 days and 3 nights. And then I understood afterwards that that is the path of the Magdalena, the tending of love, the tending to the heart, the tending with such devotion. I was so devoted to him. I still am, like, we're in devotion with each other. And I was completely and utterly devoted to his resurrection in the coma, which I thought was him. At the time, I thought he would wake up, because I'm shamanically trained. I knew that I could do this work and there would be the potential of him waking up out of the coma. But actually, the resurrection wasn't that. It was him being resurrected into the light and me being able to go with him to that. And that's what I understand about the Magdalena, was that she could feel his resurrection because she was in such devotion and love that she could then feel her own resurrection with him. And that's what others didn't necessarily feel around her with the other disciples. And that's basically what happened to me, was that I felt his resurrection through the miracle of his sacrifice and through our journey together, tending his heart. And then I was able to be in my resurrection of my holy love and my path of tending to the heart and be of service to all of life from that place.
So this what you're talking about is really special experience. Yeah, I guess many people did already the experience to assist someone who would pass. Yeah. And you went a step further, and that also means this is what, in my view or in our view, was also that Magdalena had the courage to stay until the end, and so she could feel what's happening. So she was, there was really direct connection. And what you're telling about is also hope giving, because I guess maybe you want to talk a little bit about that. At first, it feels like, as you called it, a broken heart or sadness, grief, yeah, and to get up again in this life. Yeah, we are still on earth, but the hope and the knowledge and the feeling and the wisdom that we are so deeply connected, though a beloved one left this plane. Yeah, maybe you want to give some practical advice. How did you overcome the grief and get up again and still in connection with your beloved one?
Yeah, so this is the key to what I feel the path of us now as the Magdalenas, the path of women. So is this what the sharing that I had with him, and being able to, absolutely what you said, like the courage that it took for me to be with him all the way through to the end, and the purpose of grief. So what I realized afterwards, so there was miracles around his passing. The more I tended to his love, the more the miracles happened. So the more I stayed with his death, his dying, the more I was experiencing miracles. And then after he passed, I had to tend to my own dying, because I realized the only way that I could continue in the miraculous, continue with this path that I was on with him, was to tend to my own dying, my own heart, my own devotion to myself. And I learned through that the practical steps of like tending to grief and tending to the heart, and for all of us to be able to now at this time of earth to keep on having that level of devotion to ourselves, that we are keeping on working with the temple of our hearts for the purpose of grieving the death of the old and the death of all that we've ever known, whether it's somebody you love that's died, or whether it's the death of the old paradigm, or whether it's the birthing of the new earth, or the resurrection of your beloved in the afterlife, or whether it's the resurrection of us together as sisters again. We have to grieve. We have to grieve, and we have to understand what grief truly is. And I never understood what grief really was up until that point. So for me, grief is medicine for us to be able to make it through the gateway of the heart, which is into the kingdom of love, which is our God self within. So our beloved, our inner beloved, and that it's the grief that takes us through the heart. It's the grief that carries us through that gateway. And so as we allow the tears to be there, and the broken openness, the brokenness of our heart to be the openness to that kingdom, we have to really allow the tears to wash us free of it all, of all of the contraction in our hearts, wherever it comes from. The contraction in our hearts is cleared through the tending to that grief and to that trauma that we hold in our hearts. And it's never ending, because as we move into the resurrection of ourselves as a humanity, into us all being the beloved and bringing heaven to earth, there's so many layers of grief and trauma that we need to allow our heart to open more, keep being broken, and not to be afraid of the heartbreak, because when we experience our hearts being broken open, we can tend to contract more, because we're afraid of the enormity of the feeling, the pain, the loss. But in the pain and the loss is that's where we birth ourselves again. Just like when we give birth to children, it's in the contraction and in what we consider pain is the ecstasy, is the opening into love. It's awakening us to more love. But we have to meet that place of like, okay, we're gonna like welcome the pain, and that's where I had to get to. Was I was waking up every morning with heartbreak, and I would have to go into the pain, into the heartbreak, and allow it to rebirth me into the new version of myself, which was incomplete, actually. Forgiveness, hope, compassion, love, such pure love, such ecstatic love, such divine awakening of my own love through his love, but but now it's like tending us all. We're all like the death doulas for each other. We're all tending to each other's hearts. We're all being the Magdalenas, the women that are tending to each other's hearts with that level of devotion to each other, that we can allow us all to rebirth ourselves together. And that's why I know we can't do it on our own. We need each other. He needed me and I needed him. I needed him to die to awaken to this level of love that I am, you know, and that was his gift to me. So every time we die, whether it's physically or we die to the version of us that we were before, and we resurrect ourselves into the new version of ourselves, we have to tend to that dying of ourselves to awaken to more love. And we have to tend to each other now to allow each other to surrender completely, to feel the grace of who we truly are.
So, and there is the courage again to welcome the pain and the feeling. Yeah, it's about always the feeling, to stay connected, but not, that's always a small passage, not to jump into the pool of griefness for the rest of the life, you know. So it's just about the feeling, but not getting in this low energy. So that's a complete another thing. And that's it needs power and courage. And what we learned from Yeshua and Maria Magdalena was, yes, they needed each other because of the masculine and feminine aspect. They're incarnated as persons, but it is about the consciousness. So if you want to manifest something, you need both the feminine and the masculine. And so that's what you're talking about too. So what is maybe, can you, so life gave you some kind of training with your personal experience. And is there something you would give to other women, girls or women, maybe ceremonies of passage times, sisterhood, connectedness? What are you doing, in fact?
Yes, so we're doing rites of passage work for this very reason. So every rites of passage needs a ceremony. So we hold ceremonies for women and for girls and for brothers now too. But the background has been with the sisters to regenerate the culture of holding each other through our rites of passage ceremonies, through our dying and our awakening to love, and the new version of ourselves that comes every time we surrender. And you're right, it takes a massive amount of courage. And so for me, when you really go into the dying of yourself, whether it's becoming a woman, whether it's becoming an elder, whether it's menopause, whether it's death, it's that willingness to surrender deeply into it that carries you through, rather than getting stuck in the grief, you know, because it's when we don't want to fully allow ourselves to be in it, that we stay contracted. Because what we need to do, which is what ceremony is have a ceremony, have a way for us ceremony to bring you through to the other side. So that grief ceremony, or that rites of passage ceremony, is the anchor that brings you right through into the other side, into the resurrection, because that's what's needed to be able to integrate the experience. So to integrate the pain, the loss, the trauma, whatever you're experiencing needs integrating, so you can become embodied through that experience and not get stuck in it for the rest of your life, you know, not be at the mercy of it. Like, you know, to me, mercy is like bringing you to your knees, where you are surrendered at the feet of love, and then getting up again, because you have a ceremony to say, now rise and embody this. Yeah, that's what it is for me, you know. And it's like that death and resurrection is the bit that's missing in our culture, is the understanding of how to really work with ceremony with each other to be able to do that. Because in my experience, it takes the village of women. It takes the village of us all to actually have meaningful rites of passage ceremony. But for us working with the women, it takes a village of women to truly witness and honor it and make ceremony for each other in the depth that's needed to rise up again and be embodied. You know, we need that holding for each other. And so if we don't have that village, if we don't have that culture, which we don't, then we have to find the ways of doing that inside of ourselves through, you know, deep work with the heart is our way, my sister and ours way. So like Hannah talked about the oils, you know, I work with soul mending, which is cultivating the temple of your heart, actually working with meditation, visualization and shamanic journey to actually tend to your heart as a temple and to bring home your inner girls, bring home your fragmented teenage selves, or for me, even the woman that was fragmented on the beach trying to save his life, bringing her home to love, you know, and seeing her coming into this temple that's been created in the heart, you know. So, and making ceremony, always making ceremony. It is the age of devotion to ourselves now. Like what a lot of women I find aren't doing is we're so devoted to everybody else, to our children, to our lovers, to our parents, you know, as they get older, you know, to the trees, to the ancestors, to the rivers. But what about the devotion to ourselves? What about seeing yourself as a shrine, as a holy shrine that needs to be tended to with offerings, to the offerings that you would leave in the temples of India, to the deities, to the goddess, you know, seeing yourself as that holy shrine that you can make offerings to keep tending to your heart and laying offerings at the feet of all the versions of yourself that you've been so far in your life, your baby self, your child self, your daughter self, your mother self, you know, and being like, you are amazing, wow, you've done it, you've made it through, like, and laying those flowers down for yourself and tending to yourself as the Magdalena, because we had to open our hearts to ourselves as well, you know, because the holy is within. So that's my way of bringing it to women, you know, and to the brothers, but there's not so much of that yet, but there will be.
So you gave, thank you for all creative ideas during a ceremony. So how do you, and you're talking about how you do it. If there is a young woman or an elder woman, there is a woman who would love to do a ceremony, but she don't has the ability to visit your place, and she would organize it for herself. Is there anything practical, a hint you would give to bring the flowers in a physical form to yourself using, you mentioned also from Hannah, the essential oils, it can be sound healing, what else? Just to give some inspiration. Do you have any other advice?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I mean, simple things like, you know, making a space. So, you know, I help people pass over as well, you know, and one of the key things that I find with women that are passing over is what I've just said, that they have never turned the eyes of love to themselves and they're faced with it in their final moments. And it's like, so to all women, whatever age we are, just to make in, you know, somewhere in your room, in your bedroom or in your living room, a place that's a shrine actually to you. And so every day you're going to that shrine and you're lighting that candle and you've got a photo of yourself on there. You've got your most sacred objects. And I know most women have their sacred objects that are probably listening to this beautiful podcast, you know, but even like if you're working with a girl and you can see she's struggling a little bit becoming a woman, and if she's open to it, just to like make a little space for her just to have a little altar to herself, you know, and you keep tending to it with those flowers, lighting the candle, and yeah, use sound, you know, use chanting, use oils, and to really just have the focus to open your heart to yourself, you know, just to open your heart to yourself. And I find, which is something you mentioned before, love, I know that you work with a lot, is Ho'oponopono. This such a powerful prayer, isn't it? The forgiveness. So what I work with a lot is forgiving myself, and forgiving all those parts of myself that have forgotten that they are love in the moment, you know, that have forgotten that they are love because they experience some contraction that's not allowing me to expand into my true self, you know, and just forgiving them and letting them go. So just simple ritual of forgiveness and compassion.
So it's beautiful that you bring us again to this simple place. Yeah, it's always so simple, and this makes it often not so easy. And when I would come back to Maria Magdalena and Yeshua, they both had a job on earth, and they knew about that. It was all in a cosmic plan. And when they weren't together in a physical way anymore, they knew that they would be still connected, and each one of them had his own thing to do, her things to do. And how is it for you? Do you is there any quote or message you could give to us or to the audience that brings hope, that you can feel you are still connected? And because I'm asking, because the fear of death, or what we call death, yeah, switching dimension, is still on this plane. Yeah, is there something that we can do it more smoothen? So maybe you have got a message for a sentence, a word for everyday life, so that it can sink in and the trust will grow. This is the intention of the question.
So yeah, first, before we think of that way of like being able to remember who we truly are, so what I learned through tending to his passing, and then my own journey with him, is we totally stayed connected. Like, I'm completely connected with him through the veil. Like, we're one soul. So what I've learned is called the Abler soul, the sacred marriage garment of Christ, which happens between beloveds when one passes over. But what I've learned about that is he's showing me the ecosystem of heaven, which is so we are here on the earth plane, and we are within the conscious ecosystem of Gaia, of the earth. So the trees are conscious of the birds, and the birds are conscious of the trees. And the only thing that stepped out of that level of being consciously aware of being on the earth is us, is the human race. We're not consciously aware of our place within that ecosystem. And a lot of us have been doing the work to come back into the awareness of our place within this conscious ecosystem. But also heaven is also a conscious ecosystem of all of our souls together as one in the path of the beloved. And so we're there all of the time. We're just as we're here all of the time. And our heart is the way for us to really feel, well, to know that truly, because it's always there inside of us. It's not outside of us. It's all one, and heaven and earth are in reciprocity with each other. And so if we want to move through fear and to experience this truth that we are eternal love, and that there is no death, and that it's just an illusion, it brings us back to the heart. Because I was working so much on this devotion to myself, because I thought I was going to die. Like, I had moments, really strong moments of I'm just going to die. I'm just going to go with him. I don't want to be here. It's too painful. I can't bear it, you know? And then moments where the pain was so unbearable, I just thought I would go. And I had to get up every morning and do this spiritual practice of being devoted to myself. And then I realized I was dying, but I was not going to leave my body because it wasn't my time. And that what I was learning was to stay connected to him, because he was going to show me that what the ecosystem of heaven is. And so what I realized then was that understanding that he hadn't gone anywhere, that he was right there, was all I needed to do was realize myself as a soul. Because when we realize ourselves as a soul, there's nowhere to go. We're already in heaven, because we're in heaven all of the time. We're just not aware of that part of us. So it's like being aware of this human form and loving our body, loving our temple, taking care of this body that is the spirit house of our soul. And also being devoted enough to yourself that you're going to keep your heart open to life, allowing your heart to keep being open, and then is when you start to understand what hope is. It's the body of hope. It's the sacred marriage garment of Christ. It's the body of hope, because you start to feel what hope truly is. And it's like, yeah, hope and forgiveness and compassion for yourself. Like, it's turning it all to you, because we are the way, we are the light. And so, yeah, when people have given up hope, it's like in that darkness is the light of the renewal. And just to allow yourself just to lie on the earth and just surrender into that prayer that you are, that walking prayer, and to find that trust, to find that complete trust that you are held in every moment, because they are, all of our beloveds are right there. The ecosystem of heaven is within us all of the time, and there literally is nowhere to go. And so what I realize now, we're building the temple, is the path of death and resurrection is like an ancient practice. So the Knights Templar were given Portugal by the King of Portugal, the middle bit of Portugal, which is where our land is. We call it the land of the beloved heart, and we're building the Sun Heart Temple on there. The Magdalena Temple is that they were working so they were given this bit of Portugal for Portugal to be the first nation state of Europe for consciousness and knowledge. So they created all of these sacred sites. And what they were doing in those sacred sites is that they were going into the darkness, just like in the tombs in Egypt. They were going into the darkness, for 3 days and 3 nights. And they were allowing themselves to go through the experience of a near-death experience, and then coming out into the light. And so that's when we have those experiences within us, because also we can do those ceremonies, we will be doing those ceremonies in the Sun Heart Temple on the land in Portugal, of being in the darkness for 3 days and 3 nights and surrendering completely, and then coming out into the grace of the light. That will be the practice of the temple. But inside of us, we have those journeys all the time, especially women, because we bleed. So when we bleed, we're having the dark night of the soul. We're in that temple in the darkness. We are doing that experience of death and resurrection, and we have to rest. We have to surrender. We have to rest deeply and to not keep going. That's the path of the woman, isn't it? We know how to die well. We know that it takes rest and it takes surrender. And if we allow ourselves to do it, we're okay, aren't we? It's just that we're in an old paradigm that doesn't allow women to go deeply into the womb space, into the void. So that's where trust comes from, is when we are lost in feeling like there's no hope, when we are lost in feeling that there's nowhere to go, we see it as this we remember it's a sacred moment, and we are a sacred offering to life, and by giving ourselves permission to go into the darkness and to tend to ourselves, you know, so to just, as we're supposed to do when we're bleeding, even though we don't always get the chance, to tend to the bleed, to tend to the dying. So for me, that's when we start to feel the grace. Like if I have it now, you know, I'm having a really big wobble because I feel like I can't feel sun heart, and I don't know how I'm going to build the temple because it feels so huge. It's like, I stop. Just stop. Don't keep constantly trying to strive and push the universe and make it happen and come back to the light, come back to the love. I just do the opposite, which is I let myself stop and just to lie down and just allow myself to cry, to feel, and to go into that place and not to be afraid of it, and to light the candle on my altar and to remember that I am in the power of what it means to be a woman, which is deep letting go, and that I will. Yeah.
So this is already an answer of a question I would have given to you. Yeah, you're talking about this beautiful space and temple in Portugal, and I saw a picture of that. There's a rock that was carved, Maria Magdalena, was it right? Maria Magdalena carved in this rock. And so it's a special place of light, and were guided to this place. What is and you gave already answer, what is your time plan? We can't have any plans right now because so much happening, especially in this year. And sometimes we need to pause and rest. And you will let us know when there is a possibility to visit you on your place, at your place. This is what I want to get to. Yeah, that we can visit you in Portugal one day. So you let us know, yeah, where it is. Maybe you can give us a certain location where it would be. And so I guess there are several who love to travel on the path of Maria Magdalene. This is in France, this is in Spain, also a little bit Portugal, of course, Great Britain, and so to visit these spots. So
yes, so we are building now, and there will be space coming starting from May to be able to hope, you know, to have people come there, because it's a real pilgrimage, you know, it's a strong, you know, it's a portal to the Grail, Portugal, and that path that Portugal's been on in the land there, and now us building a new temple for that resurrection of ourselves and to the tending through the holy oils and the heart. And so we will be, I think, feeling it will be this summer the start of being able to open it up, because it's coming through a series of miracles all the time. So, you know, I dreamt the land before I got it. I had a dream where my beloved showed me the land, and then he died. And then when I was tending to my heart, so that's what I want to say about for people to really understand the power of tending to your heart and tending to the devotion of yourself, is when I was catapulted into that after years of tending to the earth and tending to the trees and everything, and then his death, there was nowhere for me to go but in and tend to myself to stay alive. What I realized was that that dream that I'd had, that he'd showed me when he was alive, the land, I didn't understand what it was at the time. And then he died. And then whenever I was tending to my heart, I could see that dream again. And that dream turned into the temple of my heart. It was a pine forest in the dream that he showed me when he was alive. Then I was tending to my heart with sound, with meditation, and with the practice I have of attending, you know, with the heart temple. It became this temple of the sun. And the pine forest that he showed me in the dream was, every time I meditated, I could see the pine forest, and eventually it led me to a temple of the sun. And I was just going into the temple of the sun in my heart for maybe nearly 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, before I found the land on the outside through a series of synchronicities. And it was only because my inner landscape, through devotion to myself, created my destiny, because I was so dedicated to myself. And at the time, I wasn't dedicated to myself because I knew that I was going to fulfill my destiny. I was dedicated to myself because I was trying to stay alive. But actually, that dedication to my own heart led me to my destiny, because you can't have more on the outer than what you've got on the inner. So that's what I wanted to say about tending to the heart and hope, and being able to have a life that is truly yours to be in. Your destiny comes again from taking the practice of tending to yourself and being devoted to yourself. Because once I did that, I actually found it on the outer. He gave it me in the dream. Then I tended to my heart, and suddenly it became more. And then I had a series of synchronicities that led me to the land that he'd showed me in the dream. And I would never have got there. He would have showed me it in the dream, and he would have been trying to show it me in the temple of my heart, but I would never have got there. I would never have found it as an actual place and been able to build this temple unless I tended to my inner dreaming, you know? So your heart is the gateway for your inner dreaming, your soul. So I would never have got there if I hadn't have gone deeply into myself and been devoted to myself. And now it became miraculous. So as soon as your inner landscape is tended to with the love that Mary Magdalene tended to Yeshua, you've tended to yourself to that level of love and devotion, your outer reality changes and you begin to feel heaven, because heaven brings you the miracles that Yeshua was able to do. You know, that's what I feel. You know, that's the inner union manifesting on the outer, in however that looks, whether it's an actual beloved, a partner, or whether it's a beloved destiny or a beloved piece of land, or your own death, your own beloved death. You know, it's the same. It's the journey of this inner world needs to get there first so that you can have the miracles of your life. And I think that's what Yeshua knew when he was alive. But he needed the feminine to tend to his sacrifice so that he could be fully resurrected and she could be fully resurrected. So that is the consciousness of the divine union within, isn't it? So the divine union within eventually brings you the beloved on the outer in whatever form that is. So yeah, to keep trusting yourself that devotion will take you there. So yeah, the summer is the beginning, I feel.
So this is the best. We're slowly coming to an end, but this is best sharing, or the best message you can share and give to us, about the trust, yeah. And you brought it beautifully together. How is it connected with Mary Magdalene, Yeshua? Is there just one sentence, just really one sentence, because this you need to taste on your tongue, I guess, because for many it is not in the awareness. The name of Portugal, you mentioned already. Explain in one sentence the word Portugal. So, because
Portal to the Grail, Portugal.
yes,
Yeah,
it's a heaven to the Grail. Yeah, so
yeah.
it has
through death and resurrection. Again, the words I use is embodying the resurrection. That's what the Grail is to me. Us embodying the resurrection of ourselves, which is the holy place that we are.
So this makes it makes it maybe a little bit interesting for someone who would travel to Portugal, or maybe to visit you one day. Yeah. And it always has a reason why land carries this name or some name of that. Yeah. And at the end, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the beautiful shawl you are wearing. Yeah, there's a special offer you want to give to our community, but it's not also about the offer. And maybe you want to share a little bit about this sacred.
So yes, I do want to make an offer to the community that's listening, because I know it's not easy to be in complete devotion to yourself, to be in the age of devotion, because it goes beyond self-love and it goes beyond self-care. It goes into seeing yourself as holy, and that's a journey of itself, and to really see yourself through the eyes of God, through the eyes of love, to really turn those eyes of love to face yourself and to see the grace, and then to see the grace of each other when we see each other through the eyes of God, through the eyes of love. And that journey means really what I said, embodying the resurrection by actually moving through the contraction of ourselves into the expansion. And part of that for me has been, Hannah talked about the holy river within. So for both of us, through this experience of ecstatic love, through the dying of ourselves, whatever words you use, Kundalini death, but really it's about the core of our being, isn't it? It's about the core. It's our heart, our womb, our soul, and that alignment within us. That is the force of the vital life force of the earth and heaven moving through us. And so part of that for me, when I talked about the temple and lighting a candle and everything, was when I went to India and I did a retreat along the holy river Narmada, and the grace of that's in that river is pristine, it's so clean, and there's temples all along its banks, and there's a temple in the middle of it. And these shawls are made along that river, and they are woven on hand looms and hand block printed with really old wooden block prints, and they're immersed in the water. And I brought these back from India, and the women are wearing them in ceremony as part of what I said. It's like, allowing yourself to be in that space of the holy, so these shawls are holding that frequency of being an offering to yourself. So that's what I'm holding. Is like when we dress ourselves, when we've all got our ceremonial clothes, but making every day a ceremony even, but especially when we're with the altar to ourselves, just putting the shawl and allowing yourself to be in the veiling. There is no veil. The veil is the mind. So when we allow ourselves to come out of the mind and fully into the heart, it's like we're receiving the shawl, we're receiving the veil, the truthful veil of the holy. And so I brought these back to actually help the traditions of India, because this tradition is going, but also for women to receive an item of clothing that feels like a sacred offering to you, that because we are the sacred offering to life by just being alive, by being this walking prayer that we are. So that's why I was offering, a discount for women of your community to receive a shawl, a Magdalena shawl, if they would like one. But yeah, they're incredible. They're made from silk, hand woven. It takes 1 month to make them, really tended to with love. But that's what it's about for me, even having that experience. So women are passing over in these shawls, being wrapped in these shawls. So when we make ceremony, wrapping themselves in the shawl, the closing of the bones, all of those things where they've got an item of clothing that is helping them to start to really see themselves as worthy of devoting devotion, devoting.
So I guess we could talk for hours, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much more wisdom, mentioned the bones and everything. And for this time we would close. And if you would love to get to know more about the precious gifts of Eartha and your wisdom and the shawls about the temple in Portugal, you can get in contact with her, with you. And we have all links underneath our talk under our podcast video. And we would love to see you again.
I would love to come and speak again.
And we stay in contact about all your news. And so many blessings to you, to your plans, your divine creations in Portugal and Glastonbury, and many blessings to your twin sister too.
Thank you, love. Blessings to you as well, and to all of your community. Such beauty that you're creating. Thank you so much for this podcast. How blessed that you're giving this to the world.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, love.